At PayU, we've decided to go on a journey to redefine the fintech space. This is why we're traveling around the world, crossing borders to meet experts, leaders, and innovators. People who we admire, people who are writing our alphabet. And by that, I mean the Fintech Alphabet.
Good guys, it's good to be all of us together, right? So look at this. You all look very good. So that's
Oh,
that. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of colors as well. Love the pink. So, hey, I had the chance having a chat with all of you before, and just to summarize, wowing together, it seems that everybody, is spending his life now on video, having parties, meeting with friends. I heard also, wedding, parties on Zoom or video. So I thought, well, you know what? Let's have a good conversation with great people like you to understand, what is this brave new world that we are living in and what it can be, as we get out of the lockdown. So that was really the idea. Like, well, why don't we have a conversation, over video with the three great people, that are very well known in the market in India and beyond, right? and and today it's not just the entrepreneurs, the founders, the fintech experts. It's just also Lizzie, Kunal, Amrish, you as individual, like, hey, how you guys doing? So the first part actually of the conversation was just that, is you as people, as individual, how are you doing? And just to start the conversation between us, and please interrupt yourself, jump in, etc., make it lively. When I was talking to Kunal, my first thing is always, hey, how are you coping with this? And actually, I remember you said, why coping? We should be embracing this, right? And then I thought, like, really? What do you mean by that? How can we embrace this? It's like, wow, tell me what's your secret, right? What's your secret? So maybe we'll start with that. Are you still embracing this?
Uh, I think the word coping has the curse of making you feel that you are in a bad situation. Uh, but if you kind of rewire your brain that say that you are in the situation which is kind of embracing this situation, you just accept this as the new reality. You are not trying to struggle yourself to come back to a new reality. There is no new reality that's going to come that is different than this is. We're going to have like the word coming out of lockdown seems improbable to me now. We are going to be in and out of these things for a long time now, knowing the history of this particular event right now. And I think it's just about embracing and saying that with this, what will be the new reality? And I think the word coping tells me that you have still not accepted the new reality.
so I am struggling. I spend a lot of time walking up and down my road, waving frantically at neighbors because that makes me feel better. I had a moment, I think 2 weeks ago, after complaining a lot, where I felt like, oh, finally I'm finding time to meditate and all that stuff that we plan to do. And one of my co-founders said, it's like you've got Stockholm syndrome. You've fallen in love with something you hate, which is a good way to describe this experience.
Do you think that people right now are just making the most out of it, but the reality is we all want to go back to the old normal?
It's a bit like, what's it, the hedonic treadmill, right? You always kind of adapt to the new normal. So you make $1 million and then you want to make $10 million and all that keeps going. And it's a little bit like that. We're like, okay, I can do solitary. Oh no, actually, I want to go back to sociability. So I think, I don't know, we'll see, but I have a suspicion we might be back to normal behavior faster than we think.
And for you concretely, just going back to this, I mean, except using video, etc. I mean, have you noticed in yourself, things that truly have changed in the way, in the way you think about your business, in the way you operate with your teams, in the way just as an individual, right? Do you see actually yourself transforming, through this period?
In terms of coping with the stuff, we launched 3 new products during this time, and honestly, we have shipped more stuff in last 45 days compared to the last 6 months, and that probably happened because we took this into a mission, saying that we cannot waste this crisis. We have to go absolutely on offense, and that war cry was made. As soon as we went into lockdown, we had a all hands, and we announced that, guys, this is a period where we're going to go on offense. And what I have noticed is that the calls of the meetings of 1 hour are ending in 10 minutes, right? They are so much more efficient, right? People are coming, people have so much time that they read up and show up before time. I have noticed
Right.
that the thing is that change was such a powerful change for me to see that they are operating through a collaborative document and
Right.
Slack and speaking less and less because they would rather not speak and work on something together.
I don't know if it's good or bad, right? Because you talk about human as social animal, and on these little small
Yeah.
talks, that's part of life.
Yeah.
But today you cut the small talk, right? So
Yeah.
is it still a good
Yeah.
thing for you? How do you see that?
Usually it would be like, so, Zestmoney is really good, and you kind of be creeping around the topic. In this environment, everything feels a bit more life and death and a bit more extreme, and people are used to having much more difficult conversations because it's a much more, I don't know, you don't mind taking difficult topics head on because there's a really big difficult topic out there in the world, right? So let's not kind of beat around the bush. Let's have those difficult conversations.
I've had the exact same experience. I have been a lot more efficient. In fact, it's funny, right? My team basically made a comment yesterday saying that, Kunal, you should permanently work from home.
We love you, but stay home, yeah.
Stay away.
But it's leading us also to reassess, some of the social choices, that have been imposed on us. What is an essential worker? And also, at least for me, thinking, with this on the team is how important is what we do, right? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, do we truly matter? And it goes back to the sense of purpose, right? And if you come from a US company, you always have this big vision, mission stuff, like I'm gonna change the world. And when shit happens, nobody cares, right? It's all about the profits and so on. I think here we have a moment in time where people will test us about the validity and the seriousness of our purpose and how we want to implement that. So how does it work for you, the sense of mission in this time of crisis?
So, very, very interesting. I've been actually on that thinking process for some time. And the way I was playing this out was everybody's heard about the Spanish flu while we were growing up, right? And especially now you think about it saying, what was the population doing during the Spanish flu? And then you think about it that 30, 40 years from today, when people will ask you saying, oh, you saw the pandemic of 2020, you were right there. What were you doing? What I don't want to answer was, I'm building up a new product or a new feature for my company. That's the worst answer, which I would want to give 30 years from today, okay? 30, 40 years from today, who's going to look the equivalent of a freedom fighter? Actually, the equivalent of a really big fighter in our times is the guy from Uber Eats and the guy from Ola who, Ola Eats or, whoever gives us delivery at home. They are the warriors of our time. And when you think about it, I think they are the ones which will get applauded 30, 40 years from today, the grocery delivery guys and so on and so forth. If you need to open up the purses, today is the time. Really, I think we need to do a lot more. And, some of the work with my friends in the founder community, Lizzie, I know Lizzie, Kunal, what we've actually done, I think we've got to, get more people to give back to the charity in these times. Because, when you see the mass migration which is happening in our country, it's just heartbreaking what is happening out there. If you're in a business which is lucky to have been funded well and you're in a good position, I think we should try and give another 2 months or 3 months before we have to be or forced to reduce some headcount. These are just unbelievable times. I wish 30 years from later, if somebody asks me, I can give the answer saying, I didn't fire anybody. That's the best which I could do in that journey.
When you were talking even about like the delivery guy, I was thinking That's also what's helped us as a company, not so much releasing new products. Honestly, we don't have time for that. We're just focusing on our customers. And a lot of our customers are the guys you're describing. They're having a really tough time, right? Most of our customers are not the Kunal CRED variety. They're just ordinary middle class people who a lot of them are really struggling. They've got zero income right now, and they've got zero visibility on when the income will come. And making our team do calls. So we took the whole team and we said, you all work in the customer service team for the next 3 months. Everyone in this company is a customer service representative, and getting like bankers doing calls with customers and counseling them. We've actually said counsel them, help them understand what's going on, help them think through their financial situation, help them with financial planning. Let's become their friend, their helper. And we've had like grown adult men in tears after speaking to our customers and realizing, how tough real life is. I don't think it actually clicked before. So it's brilliant because it's made them all so motivated about what we do. And so let's not waste this opportunity. Let's use that to build empathy and build better ways of financial systems, protect the most underprivileged people all the time, not just in a crisis, right? They should be able to survive forever on better financial products and systems. So I love that you're thinking of it like that, Amrish. I'm going to remember your 40 years from now.
They create these divisional realities where some of the stuff is going to be really, really far away. And my biggest worry is our education system, our skilling system is so much in the past that we don't even realize what are the future jobs. And the thing is the irrelevance of jobs is so faster now, right? For example, you may learn social media and content marketing, and it may not be a job in 5 years' time because something else would have taken off. And I think that is the real challenge, that we are not understanding that while we may empathize, but the world will not need half of the jobs that it has today.
Do you see this coming soon, actually, after, this period of crisis, or people go back to try the old life and push away these big questions?
We always had tons of people who did not have the skills for today. And therefore they were all surviving through this particular time. And my bigger worry is that if some nations kind of require less and less manual intervention, for example, look at how business travel is going to be going forward. It's so normal to do important things on Zoom and do a call and a webinar and all of that. And imagine if you are trying to organize this panel in physical world, it would probably have taken a year and a half, and this was done within a week's notice.
Yeah.
And this changes everything.
So I think for me right now, I think this is the decade really where some of the choices we are making will be defining climate change, leading to zero growth. Can we live in a world with zero growth? And what does it mean? And 3, it's going to be, we need to address this problem of huge inequalities, because at the end of the day, we haven't created a better world for a lot of people as well. I mean, there is less, hunger, etc., but still. So I think these are some of the big challenges, and that's gonna be the key decade. So. Shifting a bit the conversation to our business and what we see in our markets, it's how do you see this, affecting the fintech space, or more broadly, the super dynamic, startup scene in India? Because hey, look, I mean, India, fantastic, right? Super high valuation, right? A lot of money coming from everywhere. And now people starting to question, I don't want some money from some country, valuations are a bit too high. Do you think we are going to become more sober? Profitability, less growth, less valuation? What's your take on that?
So, personally, I have two different opinions on this, right? One opinion on this is the fact that if you look at the debt on the US government, it has really gone up by almost $2.5 to $3 trillion. What that means is there's going to be a gush of liquidity, and that gush of liquidity is then going to make a lot of businesses rise. So I don't fundamentally sit in the camps that stock market valuations will collapse and hence startup valuations will collapse. I think asset inflation in general will continue to happen over the next few years' time for sure. I think when it comes to who people want to back, I think that is definitely going to change, where people will want to back businesses which will have a path to outcomes, a path to profitability. So the metrics to be used before who they want to back will change. However, the liquidity, the wall of liquidity which will come along will continue to value the assets at a very high high level. It's a very nuanced answer. I think businesses with a very clear outcome will continue to get funded extremely well.
I was just going to add on to Amrish's point, like very similar theory. I think that actually India might be one of the global winners in terms of capital flows over the coming out of this. Ignore the sort of short-term political headlines in terms of who can and can't invest. I think India will bounce back quicker. I think we're a more resilient economy that's less linked to the global economy. And obviously, for the same reasons, much more underleveraged. So household debt to GDP ratios in India are about 16% compared to 86% in the US, right? So if you don't have that big deleveraging happening and you have a population that's never really had much stimulus or government support anyway, the bounce back arguably could be stronger. And the digital agenda has just been fast forwarded, to Kunal's point. We can see the future now. One observation I have over the last few weeks is the amount of banks or traditional incumbent lenders who have actively reached out to us and said, help us, we need to get digital faster. And that's not going to change. That's got to continue. It may be slow and it'll be painful, but they have to get digital now. There's no question. So I'm very bullish on the outlook for digital India and fintech in specific context, but with a massive but. There was far too much, one day we'll figure out a business model going on, and maybe one day that business model will be lending. And the best thing that's happened in the last few weeks is a lot of people have realized how difficult lending is and how negative margin it can be at times, right? It's called a cycle for a reason. And so actually, I hope I'm right in saying this, people that are okay with that type of lending risk and have done it before and are comfortable with that type of volatility will do really well in the future. But there's going to be a lot of money that was chasing like a potential, lending revenue stream that will not see that return because it's really, really difficult and it's going to get uglier. The lending's not going to get better sooner. It's going to get ugly before it gets better, I'm afraid, because that's how, loan books react, right? They're like animals that spit out all the bad stuff and you can't put new stuff in until all the bad stuff's come out. So I think that's going to be interesting. And I'm a bit worried about that because lending revenue and ad revenue were really the two big sort of, line items for a lot of startups in this country. And I think we need to come up with slightly more diversified revenue streams, at least from a startup community perspective.
I think the bigger point of Lizzie about how the country is going to leapfrog into digital is unbelievable, right? We are going to have a situation where I'll give you an example. Like telemedicine was blocked by the government for probably decades, and suddenly it's gone, and there is a lot more open regulation around. Let's go and build telemedicine because there is no way we can manage this country with physical infrastructure for health issues, right? And this kind of stuff is seen almost everywhere. Like there is almost like a blank check to everything digital now. And even though it may not actually move to digital, but there is going to be so much more positive approach towards doing that. Same for banks. Like we've seen people coming and talking to us for almost everything. And we tell them, hey, we'll only do this if it's going to be like for 2-minute process. And they're like, yeah, sure. That's the only way we'll do it as well. And earlier these conversations were quite absurd, to be very honest, when we said that, hey, I want to do this in 2 minutes and I want this to be in 1 minute thing. Now they are not absurd anymore. Also, the thing about India, very particularly, and I think Lizzie is right about the bounce back, is the median age of the country is 26, 27. So we're going to have the lowest, even if COVID gets to the worst possible outcome, India will not have the worst possible outcome in percentage because of the younger population that we have in the bell curve, right? And if it recovers faster, their aspirations and doing things, and for example, if there is a sentiment against, let's say, China for that matter, India will have the opportunity to take the manufacturing advantage also, right? And say that, hey, we're going to manufacture for the world and do more with that. But the thing is, every opportunity is a true test of a country, right? Will we absolutely lap it up, or we'll
Yeah.
squander it away? We'll see that India uh, has never truly had industrialization, right? This is our moment to really make that happen, make incomes grow, create aspirations, make people ambitious. And that's going to be true test for a lot of leadership across corporate world and political world to see how do we use this crisis and transform the nation.
Right, absolutely. Do you think, by the way, everything moving to digital, people re-questioning digital models, etc. Do you think it's going to be true for crypto as well?
First of all, I think we tend to forget that all currencies become mainstream when a large superpower adopts it. It's true for religion, it's true for money. And no religion became mainstream till a large superpower adopted it and distributed, became the chief distribution agent for that. And if you look back at history, India has $1.6 trillion of retail gold from the $8 trillion of gold that exists in the world. This existed because the country did not trust the regimes constantly. We had like 14 demonetizations in the history of Indian thing, and therefore people used gold as an interoperable currency way before crypto came. And my biggest worry in this time is that if world gets insanely connected on money, which is through crypto or any other currency, they will not want to keep their money in the nations they don't trust. So I believe that the nations that fundamentally struggle to extract tax money from their citizens because the citizens don't trust them are going to find more interesting ways to keep their wealth parked outside these nations, because the bigger worry that the rich will have in these nations is that we're going to be taxed and paying the price for the universal income that we need to pay for everything. So there's going to be a systematic way where value will get redistributed, and it may not be in the form of crypto necessarily. It can be any other form. Like if China actually creates a digital cryptocurrency which is backed by a superpower, a guy who's not paying taxes, let's say in a small town in India, would not mind keeping that money over there, because just in case something goes wrong, he has an out.
Yeah, a little bit careful in saying a cryptocurrency. I'm still talking about a digital currency because just the way some of the markets are structured and just the history around currency, I think governments will be far more open towards a pegged digital currency rather than a completely unhinged digital currency. And I think the place in time which India is in today, India needs to actually accelerate a move towards digital currency. I guess China is doing exactly that, right? China is taking a move towards crypto, towards digital currency. I think India needs to do that. But going back to the earlier question, I think India has a lot of work to do. And one of my worries right now is what we took for granted. That is India's position on the world table when it comes to GDP and our abilities to make an impact. That is going to be under some serious stress over the next 2 to 3 years' time. Let me give you one simple example, right? When you look at the Indian GDP, and if you in the Indian GDP, besides agriculture, services, and some of the trading related income that we have, very little actually is in the manufacturing segment. If you look at capital and where capital is going, very little capital is going in creating new industries. On top of that, we have a situation where the banks are right now faced with massive bad debts, and their abilities to fund capex and capex related new initiatives is going to be under stress for the next 4 years, 5 years time, which is the time in which India has to go ahead and create really massive infrastructures. If you actually look at it, some of the infrastructure companies have gone under over the last 10 years. Unfortunately, a lot of Indian public thinks that, oh, this was any which ways wrong money that they had. It's a good thing that infrastructure companies have gone down. I think it's a very bad thing that infrastructure companies have gone down, and the fact that industry is not creating new manufacturing jobs. There is a lot of work ahead of us, and almost currency becomes a second point. I think there are very simple, immediate steps that we need to take, or success is not guaranteed. That's the way I would put it.
Hey guys, I wanted to ask you, in that context, I mean, completely agree with you, on the capacity, of India, its population, its market to rebound quickly, right? And continue to be the powerhouse, of growth around the world. No doubt on this. I've always been also fascinated, on how India has been able, to build stuff locally, in a very record amount of time, like UPI, for instance, right? I mean, build a completely new model, right? A completely new payment infrastructure. I mean, this is unique around the world. And at the same time, promote local infrastructure, but at the same time, invite, big players from abroad. In that context, how should we think about, the Facebook investment, into geo, compare especially to Facebook a few years ago, which always had trouble, in the Indian market, right? And the consumers love WhatsApp, consumers use WhatsApp, geo, incredible powerhouse. How should we think, about this combination of the two, you know? Is it also that second moment of time, where digital payments, digital financial services will really get, to mass adoption?
The way I see this is, I think this is what Amazon is doing, what Walmart is doing, what Reliance Jio is doing is just unbelievable. So when you read up what that whole story is, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg that we get to see, which is, oh, you can do ordering very close to your house and then you can collect the goods out there. But what that means is the entire supply chain has to get re-engineered. You need to have infrastructure to move goods to reach from farm to table in about 1.5 days time. Massive warehousing which needs to get created. Massive capacity and capabilities for distribution in the last mile and last yard which needs to get created. And this is exactly the investment that the country needs. Either the country creates that infrastructure or the country invites others to help create that infrastructure. And really where we are sitting at today, India has taken a policy wherein they are saying that we are going to invite others to go ahead and create the infrastructure. So I'm less concerned or excited over, can I get my milk in 45 minutes from the store nearby? I'm more excited by the fact that the milk which was actually got in Gujarat could be in Punjab in as recent and as quick as 16 hours, 17 hours. I think that is the big difference which some of these big partnerships are going to play in India.
The way government thinks about this and the way some of these partnerships may accelerate the behavior is to make these rails considered to be public utilities, right? And I think that will change how payment companies should be thought through. For example, CRED as a company would have not existed unless UPI was free, right? There is no way we could have made some of these business models work. And therefore, CRED cannot exist in the US right now, right? CRED can only exist in India because these changes happened because of that. So I'm the beneficiary of that in many ways. But the point is that WhatsApp payments, when it comes alive, it's going to be the next big shift for the country, right? Most people do not realize that when you can send a picture as simply as sending money to somebody, the world changes, right? And some of us who are on WhatsApp payments already feel that and know that we can just seamlessly send money without thinking much, right? That change is not something that people are understanding that's going to happen. When it happens, it's going to hit them. Just the way Jio changed. I remember tweeting that Jio used to give free internet to people, and for a year, people are like, oh, who's going to use this and that? And they dropped and I used to run free charge that time. The cost per GB used to be 375 rupees per GB, right? They brought it to as low as 2 rupees per GB, right? That changed the country, right? And same way, WhatsApp payment is going to be as big a moment of that, according to me. And the interesting thing about this is that there are going to be so many new commerce opportunities that are going to come, because now sending 5 rupees or 10 rupees is going to be insanely efficient and without any cost. There are going to be so many, I call it the sachet commerce opportunities. There are going to be so many 5 rupees, 10 rupees commerce opportunities that you could be building tons and tons of businesses on. That's going to open up now because of the seamlessness of this transaction. You don't have to have the AOV of 3,000, 4,000 rupees to justify a payments transaction. You will have 3 rupees transaction, 5 rupees transaction that works on these rails, and the business model have to be reimagined around this. The good news is we're going to have, in a year or year and a half, if WhatsApp payment launches, we will, just the way we have accepted data to be cheap in India, we will just think of payments as normal. We will not even think, and I think the banks may fundamentally get disrupted because of that, because the only use case people go to the bank app is to transfer money.
Yeah.
And their cross-sell only happens during that time. So my worry is that if banks don't become powerful platforms will become banks.
Is there a risk, that we have this wonderful open platform, which is UPI, right? Which is a public utility, right? Everybody can go access, innovate on that. CRED is one of them, right? But basically, most of the value created then being captured by a private player on top of that. So I'm using the utility, which is a public good, for my own private benefit, and I create de facto, a one-player market. Could there be a risk on this?
I don't know, but I would say the history suggests in India it's never that simple. So, unlike China or Europe or the US, India's always complicated. It's never black and white. There's 2,000 Indias. I'm still trying to figure out if it's 2,000 or 2 million. And therefore you can never make these predictions. And, really simple, even in our space, right? I remember when RuPay launched and everyone said, this is the death of Visa, MasterCard. Visa, MasterCard are dead. They won't exist. It's RuPay. Look at China. It's RuPay. And guess what? Like, we have Visa, we have MasterCard, we have RuPay, we have UPI, we have 10,000 other payment mechanisms. So I just think life's too complicated here to say that these, grand sweeping changes will happen. Geo has been a phenomenon. We've all benefited. Let's not ignore that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it can be replicated in everything. It's not going to be winner takes all in every single industry.
There are not 500 apps through which we send pictures to each other. There are not 500 apps that we send videos to each other. There are no 500 apps that we share articles with each other. Same way money is going to be moving. So there's going to be a winner take all in P2P. The problem of winner take all behavior in P2P is the frequency it creates. In internet businesses, frequencies act as black holes and suck infrequent use cases, right? So if I'm used to making payments through WhatsApp for tons of P2P transactions, I would be naturally feeling a lot less energy wastage when I use that to also do P2M payment, right? And that's what WeChat did to Alipay in China, is that it came really from behind after many years and became the default app for many people because of the frequency and the amount of time you spend on this app. One more thing about Lizzie, because he talked about this 2,000 or 2 million India, is that these 2 million India naturally creates trust in alien entities, right? So we love foreign companies a lot more because we cannot agree to one thing together. So we trust the neutral platforms a lot more. When Lizzie and I meet in India, we don't speak in local language, we speak in English because that's the neutral platform that we come together on. So the neutral platform of India has been shown, like cricket is our neutral platform, tea is our neutral platform, not from India. Our favorite office party food is pizza, not from India. So India has adopted neutral platforms, and India loves neutral platform because it removes the angst that we have amongst community.
Hey, believe it or not, it's already 1 hour that we've been talking together.
Wow.
And I know that we could carry on like this, I mean, Amrish is starting to open the beer, under the desk, etc. Believe it or not, it's fascinating, and there are so many, other angles to that. There is the big discussion around data, etc. But we need to bring this to a close. If you had to recommend one book to our audience, one book that has helped you, think about the future or just, go through this period of time, etc. But one book you would have to recommend to our audience, what would it be right now? I'm not trying to promote any retailer online, right? Okay. I'll go first if you want. So I give you a bit more time, It's I just have it with me on my desk, right? I've got a pile of them actually. So this one, it's this one. I don't know if you can see it, the Uninhabitable Earth, right? I think this one is I mean, actually, I was discussing that with my son. I say, hey, look, if you want to start reading a book which is at the same time accessible, right, around everything that we have to face in the next decade in terms of climate change, the choices we will have to make, but also that you feel a bit uncomfortable and scared at time. Like, we've got to do something. It's not just a book that you put, on your bedside table. Actually, you don't want to read that before going to bed because you won't sleep well. There is this kind of tension. I think this one does a good job at making it, like, guys, this is the time really to face the reality. It's a call to action. And actually, I've walked out of that compared to a lot of other books. It's much more positive because I think the good thing about humanity is faced, by a grave danger, some people will truly react, and that will be the new leaders. And I think this is the call to action for that. So I'm just sharing that. I hope it will work for people. So.
Okay, I'll
Amazing.
share what I'm reading right now, which is it's not so deep, but it's helping me. So it's a book called Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman, who's a very famous psychologist, I think with Penn University. And he actually advises the US government on how to, develop happiness, whatever that means, amongst, for example, the army and in schools and things like that. And I thought it'd be useful at this time to help me inspire my team. And what he says, the gist of it, which I think is a useful lesson for all of us right now, is optimists generally, and I would consider myself an optimist, but a lot of people are not. Optimists generally have a bigger bias for action, and therefore, when we're in very distressing situations, they get us out faster. So that's why in the army you need to have more optimists. That's why, in education you need to have more optimists. Pessimists are very useful when you're going into a crisis, but to get out of a crisis, we need a lot more optimism in our life. And we can learn it, we can develop it. It's a muscle that we can build. So I would give that a go. I think the world needs some optimists right now.
So the book which comes to my mind is Vedanta Treatise. So for all those who are like trying to seek the purpose
Yeah.
of and the goals of human life, and I guess that's what the times that we are in. It's a fantastic book. I would recommend anybody to read that. Really gives you some clues of why we are all here.
I always find it hard to recommend a book, so I will say this is the perfect time to study history. And any book that can give you a better perspective of future will come from reading history. And the few books that come to my mind is Sapiens, Guns,
Yeah.
Germs, and Steel, and Ascent of Money. I think these three books, and I'm taking the liberty of three because I can never do one when it comes to books. And one more book is Debt Last 5,000 Years. It's an interesting book about how debt has evolved for the last 5,000 years. So it's a great time to read up history because it's going to repeat itself.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. I'll post that at the end, of this conversation, so people have the reference, but that's great. Hey, look, really, thanks a lot for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation, together. I think it was genuine, authentic, a real conversation, at a distance. So can't wait, to meet in person as well, and have a drink together, whatever it is, that we have in the cup. But thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. And hey, look, best of luck, best wishes, for the coming weeks, coming months, right? We're all very, very bullish, on the opportunities, ahead of us and the resilience, of India. So that's the last note, for all of us optimists, right, in the room. So thanks a lot for this.
Thank you very
Talk to you
much.
soon. Take care.
Good chatting. Bye,
Thank
guys.
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.